Well, even as violent crime spikes across the country, some progressives are still pushing for anti-police policies. But as Fox News Digital has uncovered, they have no problem paying big bucks to protect themselves from crime. Fox learning that the Democratic candidate for Georgia Governor Stacey Abrams paid close to $500,000 since the start of the year on private security. That's even though she sits on the board of a Seattle-based organization that supports abolishing the police. While Abrams insists she doesn't support defunding the police, she did support the group's anti-police initiatives. Let's bring in Seattle radio talk show host Jason Rantz. Jason, another case of security for me, not for thee.
Absolutely. Now, I don't blame her. If I had to campaign through Atlanta, I would also want added security because of the crime surge there. You have a police department that's down some 500 or 600 officers from where it needs to be to keep the city safe. This has been an ongoing experiment on defunding the police and getting us towards this abolitionist movement that has failed over and over and over again. And folks on the left, because they're blinded by their ideology, and that includes Stacey Abrams, they refuse to accept the end state of what they've done to these communities in which they've gone after the cops. They've installed these policies that go easy on criminals, policies that don't protect anyone, oddly enough, except for the criminals. And yet she can't step back and say, hey, why do I need to spend so much money on security? Because this is beyond what you would normally expect for a campaign.
You know, your statement about blinded by their own ideology, but at the peril of those around them that are living results of these policies. That is the point.
Yes, and I think what they do is justify the pain and the suffering and the spilt blood on the streets of their cities because they think the end goal is going to be a worthy one for them, that it will better serve the community when they get rid of police and prisons and install all of these different policies. And they accept that there's going to be some collateral damage along the way. That's how sick and twisted this ideology is, because most people, sane people, would step back and say, okay, this is clearly not working, and it's not worth all of these victims. But unfortunately, they seem to just have one direction.
So Abrams, she recently, it was an interview with Axios, she insisted that she supports increased police funding and officer pay as her role with the Seattle-based group that we're talking about here that eventually did obviously fund this security for her. She insists that that has become a political liability. So you look at this, though, and you wonder if the country sees this, right, that they're now having to live through the peril of these policies on American streets in great American cities, coast to coast, if this will cause a political sea change come the midterm elections.
It should, and she's right to be worried about that. This whole idea that she doesn't actually support defunding of police is, of course, nonsense. When you sit on a board like this, and it's the Marguerite Casey Foundation, it's based out of Seattle, it doesn't get a whole lot of attention, but they put a lot of money into various anti-police and abolitionist causes, and beyond that, they also happen to be anti-capitalist. And if you're going to sit on the board of one of these organizations, unless you are publicly trying to change the viewpoints of these organizations, I think a reasonable person would say, well, clearly she sides with the majority of the work that they're doing. So by staying on this board, despite all of the controversy, she's telling us pretty clearly where she stands. She's trying to have it both ways because she wants to go out there on the campaign trail and tell people who are very clearly concerned about their communities, whether it's Atlanta or anywhere else in Georgia. She's trying to claim that she cares about the community and she wants to do what she can to increase public safety. But her beliefs and what she's saying, the actions and her words, they don't match up.
But people hear them. And I just wonder, final thought from you, Jason, if you see the potential for change, if the Republicans do come in and there is a red wave in November, if there's a plan to bring safety back to our streets, because we see this polling too up there with one of the biggest concerns of the American voters at this time. You know, when you head to the polls and you don't feel safe walking with your children down the sidewalk in your small town America, you are going to seek change.
Yeah, I think that Republicans have to be very clear on this. The branding as being pro-police and anti-criminal is strong, but it doesn't change overnight. You have to dismantle all of these policies that Democrats put in place, and that's going to be the tough work.
All right, Jason Rantz, great to see you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sandra.
And that is a question so many voters will ask themselves. Obviously, a lot of pocketbook issues, but Rich, end of day, if you don't feel safe, you are going to show up and cast your vote in a way that you believe it will increase the safety for you and your family.
And look what just happened in Washington, D.C. The mayoral candidate in a very liberal Democratic city, that in the center, really, the center candidate, beat a number of other challengers who were coming at it from the left.
Yeah.
So, here we are a year later. Yeah.